So you've probably seen this stuff popping up online, right? This crazy, vibrant, electric blue liquid is, well, it's everywhere on social media. You've got biohackers and influencers all claiming it's some kind of miracle supplement, for everything from boosting your brain to turning back the clock on aging.
Welcome to Value Vest Daily, where we analyze various hot topics related to health, food, and lifestyle. So today, we're going to dive right in. We're going to look at the actual science, the hard data behind this stuff called methylene blue.
Yeah, we're going to break down exactly what it is, how it's supposed to work, and what does the evidence really say? Because let's be honest, the big question we're all asking is this stuff a real breakthrough for health and longevity, or is it just another dangerous social media trend?
What's so fascinating is that this isn't some brand new cutting-edge compound. Oh no, methylene blue has a wild history. It actually started its life way back in 1876, get this, as a dye to make textiles blue, like for your jeans. Just think about that for a second. But then, only 15 years later, this brilliant scientist, Paul Ehrlich, figures out this dye can also kill malaria parasites. Boom, it becomes the world's first ever synthetic drug. And it didn't stop there. It later became a go-to antidote for cyanide poisoning. Fast forward to 2016, and the FDA gives its official stamp of approval to an IV form called Blue, but only for a very, very specific medical emergency.
And that one super specific condition? It's called methemoglobinemia. It's a pretty rare but absolutely terrifying blood disorder where your red blood cells, they just can't deliver oxygen to your body anymore. It's a life or death situation. And in that scenario, methylene blue is a genuine lifesaver. It basically reboots your hemoglobin, so your red blood cells can start doing their job again. So let's get one thing straight. This is not snake oil. It's a powerful, legitimate drug with a very real, life-saving purpose.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? How on earth did a highly specific IV-only prescription drug make the leap from the emergency room to the internet's favorite anti-aging supplement?
Well, the answer, it turns out, lies deep, deep inside our cells. We're talking about those tiny little power plants that run our entire body, the mitochondria. You can think of them as our cellular batteries. And this is where all those big claims about anti-aging and boosting energy really begin.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the science behind the hype. So the theory goes that at really low doses, methylene blue acts like a cellular supercharger. First, its unique chemical makeup lets it just waltz right into our cells and head straight for the mitochondria. Now imagine your energy production system is like a factory assembly line, right? As we get older, a few of the stations on that line get, let's say, a little rusty and inefficient. What methylene blue does is pretty clever. It acts like a shortcut. It grabs the electrons, the product on the line, and zips them directly to the final stage, totally bypassing those broken down parts. And this is brilliant because it does two things. One, it amps up the production of ATP, which is the basic energy currency for our cells. And two, it helps the whole factory run a lot cleaner.
So what do I mean by cleaner? Well, think about that rusty, inefficient assembly line we just talked about. It's sputtering out a ton of nasty exhaust fumes. In our cells, that exhaust is called reactive oxygen species, or ROS for short. And these things are bad news. They damage our cells and are a huge driver of the aging process. So by creating that super efficient shortcut, methylene blue helps slash that cellular exhaust. In fact, some lab studies are suggesting it can cut down on this harmful leakage by pretty staggering 20 to 50% in cells that are under stress.
I mean, that all sounds absolutely incredible on a cellular level, doesn't it? A cleaner, more efficient engine for our cells. What's not to love? But, and this is a huge but, this is where we have to hit the brakes and pivot from the lab to real life. What actually happens when we give this stuff to living, breathing humans?
All right, let's walk through the actual human data, because this is where the story starts to get, well, a lot more complicated. Take a look at this chart with me. Skin anti-aging? Yeah. Those promising results were in a petri dish, on skin cells, not on actual people. Okay, what about making you smarter? Well, one study did show a memory boost, but you gotta look at the fine print, only 26 people, and it was a single dose. That's hardly proof that it's a long-term brain booster, right? And it's the same story for the studies on depression and brain blood flow. They're small, they're on very specific groups of people, and they come with big-time caveats. Honestly, the most important column on this whole chart is that last one, limitations. It tells you that for all the hype you see online, the real-world evidence in healthy people is paper thin.
And this is exactly why medical experts are telling everyone to be extremely cautious. Dr. Rupa Parmar, who's the medical director of Midland Health, puts it perfectly. She says we have to be so careful about the kind of unverified health claims we see on social media, especially when we're talking about powerful substances that aren't approved for this kind of use.
And believe me, the risks here are not trivial. They're very real. There are some groups of people who need to stay far, far away from methylene blue. At the very top of that list, anyone taking SSRIs or other antidepressants. It's also a big no-no for people with a specific genetic condition called G6PD deficiency, anyone with kidney or liver problems, and it's definitely off-limits during pregnancy because it can harm the fetus.
Let's zoom in on that interaction with antidepressants for a second, because it can lead to something that is genuinely terrifying. It's called serotonin syndrome. See, methylene blue blocks an enzyme that your body uses to manage serotonin. So if you mix that with a drug that boosts your serotonin levels, like an SSRI, you've just created a perfect storm. You can get this massive, toxic flood of serotonin in your brain, which can cause high fevers, seizures, and yeah, it can even be fatal. This is not a minor side effect. It's so serious that the FDA has put a black box warning on it. That's the most severe warning they can issue.
Okay, this next point is maybe the most critical thing you need to understand about methylene blue. It's like a chemical with a split personality, and it all depends on the dose. At the super low doses they use in research, and we're talking less than 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, it seems to act as an antioxidant and energy booster. But if you push that dose higher, let's say above 7 milligrams per kilogram, it does a complete 180. It flips its identity and becomes a pro-oxidant. It starts doing the exact opposite of what you want it to do, generating more damage in your cells. This can lead to chest pain, confusion, and get this, it can even trigger the very blood disorder it's supposed to cure at lower doses. So really, the dose is everything. It's the line between a potential benefit and a definite poison.
So let's be absolutely crystal clear about where the regulators stand on this. The FDA has approved methylene blue for one thing and one thing only, as an intravenous drug to treat methemoglobinemia. That's it. It has not been approved as a dietary supplement, not for anti-aging, not for brain power, not for anything else you might see online.
And of course, we have to say this, and it's really important, nothing we've talked about here is medical advice. This is just for your information. You absolutely have to talk to a qualified medical professional before you even think about starting any new supplement or treatment.
So, to wrap this all up, let's just weigh the evidence one last time. It's established, FDA-approved medical use for that one specific blood disorder. The evidence is rock solid. It's a proven lifesaver. Now, the evidence for human longevity, for all those claims you see online, it's very, very low. And what about the potential risks, especially if you get the dose wrong or mix it with the wrong meds? Well, those risks are significant, no question.
And that brings us back to what Dr. Parmar said, which is just so wise. She reminds us that it's really unlikely that any single supplement is going to be a miracle cure. The best thing you can do is be cautious and do your own research. And that right there is the real takeaway. So, all of this leaves us with one final and I think crucial question to ask ourselves. In this whole quest for better health and a longer life, where do you draw the line between being a pioneer exploring a new frontier and just being reckless with something unproven and potentially dangerous?
If you found this breakdown helpful, and I hope you did, please do us a favor and subscribe, like, and share Value Vested Daily. It really helps us keep you aware of these life-changing topics that cover your health and happiness.
Hey, one more thing. We'd love to hear from you. Please put in a comment if you want us to deep dive into any specific topic. We read them all. Thanks so much for tuning in, and as always, stay curious.